Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Becomes the Sin of Pride? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku's POV. Not everyone is born equally, that's what I've learned since I was 4. In a world where quirks, powers that manifest in people, are common, about 80% of the population has them, while 20% are considered quirkless. Those without quirks are often labeled as weak and defenseless, and I fall into that 20%. Ever since I was young, I've dreamed of becoming a hero, a title for those who want to make a change in the world, but it felt impossible after what happened at school. I was mocked for wanting to apply to UA, one of the best schools in Japan, all because of my lack of a quirk. I hated being called weak, and what made it worse was my former childhood friend, who had turned into my bully, trying to convince me to give up on life. Those words almost pushed me to act, but I didn't, scared of being blamed for something I couldn't control. Things took a turn when I was saved from a slime villain by my #1 hero, Allmight. I grabbed his leg as he was about to leave and asked him if it was possible for me to become a hero without a quirk. His response was blunt, no. He told me not to strive for an impossible dream and suggested I consider becoming a cop, firefighter, or doctor before leaving me on the rooftop in tears. Feeling disgusted by the hero I once idolized, I walked home, consumed by anger. On my way, I stumbled upon a crowd and smoke, hearing that someone was trapped by a villain. I was shocked to see my bully caught in the same slime villain that All Might had just defeated. When I saw Bakugu's face filled with fear, my body moved on its own. The so-called heroes tried to stop me, but I was deaf to their warnings, focused only on my heartbeat and a newfound strength. I threw my bag at the villain's weak spot, allowing Bakugu to catch his breath. "What the hell are you doing, you dumb nerd?" Bakugu shouted, but I ignored him and pulled him free from the sludge. Just as I created distance, the villain lunged at us, but All Might intervened, delivering a powerful punch that sent a gust of wind through the area. The civilians cheered for him, but when they looked at me, even the pros showed nothing but disgust. I felt sick as they lectured me for getting involved while praising Bakugu for his quirk. Once I got up after hearing their scorn, I left, only to be called out by Bakugu. "Oi Deku, I didn't ask for your help. You were nothing but a nuisance." With that, he walked away, leaving me filled with resentment towards someone I once considered a friend. My former idol tried to talk me out of becoming a hero, but I turned away, my fist clenched. "I want nothing to do with you, hypocrite," I said, leaving him behind as I made my way home. When I arrived, my mom was worried, and I reassured her I was okay. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I felt a familiar heat in my chest. Before drifting off to sleep, I saw a figure with a weapon and flames around him, who simply said, "Show some pride." The next morning, I woke up feeling energized. To my surprise, I had grown from 5 feet 5 inches to an impressive 6 feet 1 inch, my body well defined. I shrugged off the confusion about my dream and decided to go for a walk since I had no school. My mom was surprised by my growth, and I told her I had a growth spurt before heading out for a jog to Dagoba Beach, a place sadly infested with illegal dumping. Determined to help the community, I began training my body by cleaning the beach. I knew I was behind because of being quirkless, but I felt nothing but pride in my determination to prove myself. Over the months, I focused on building my strength, agility, flexibility, and speed, learning strategies along the way. I even asked my mom for nutritional advice, and she supported me as best as she could. At school, my classmates and teachers were surprised by my transformation. Bakugu, however, was furious and tried to intimidate me, but I stood my ground. "Pardon me," I said, towering over him, ready to face whatever came next. "I feel uneasy when someone smaller than me looks down on me." Bakugu couldn't say anything as he met Izuku's gaze. All he saw was a calm beast, poised and ready to strike. But when the teacher entered, the tension eased, and Izuku returned to his seat. After that, most students avoided messing with Izuku, for a single look from him felt like standing too close to the scorching sun. Izuku's POV. 10 months have passed, And I've finally finished cleaning the beach, restoring it to its rightful glory. During my training about 2 months ago, I wasn't alone. A girl with pink dreadlock-like hair and an energetic personality greeted me, excitedly talking about her inventions and dreams. She had a lot of pride in her ambitions, and we began to hang out, using the electronic equipment that was still functional for her training. Now, thanks to my training, my muscles have grown stronger, and I've even gained a tattoo on my back. This made my mother worry that I was involved in something questionable, but I reassured her that I wasn't. I take pride in my choices and strive to make her proud. Now I'm at UA, the prestigious school training students to become heroes. Honestly, I feel indifferent about it as I walk through the halls. Other students glance at me, a bit intimidated by my physique, but I ignore them and continue on my way. Just then, I quickly stopped a girl from nearly falling face first onto the pavement. "Hey, it's bad luck to fall on your face," I said. She looked up at me, blushing, and thanked me before continuing on her way, leaving me to wonder if I had done something wrong. But then I heard a familiar voice and turned to see May, who immediately hugged me. "It's nice to see you, May, but we should get going," I said. She only replied that she wanted to keep hugging me, which made me laugh. With a gentle lift, I placed her on my shoulder and continued walking inside. After completing the theory portion of the exam, President Mike explained the practical aspect, and I learned I was assigned to Gate A. I stretched, wearing an armless t-shirt, track breathes, and training shoes. The other examinees stared at my muscles, and I maintained a serious expression. I spotted the girl I had helped earlier and wanted to reassure her, but I was interrupted by another student. "That girl over there, are you trying to ruin her chances of getting into this institution? If so, you should leave this instant," he said. I turned to face him, glaring, which made him sweat under the weight of my gaze. "You suggested I leave this exam? Who decided that? You have no authority here. Watch what you say about me and anyone else with your arrogance, weakling," I replied before turning away, leaving him flustered. I approached the girl again, wrapping my arms around her waist, causing her to yelp in surprise. I turned her to face me. "You're nervous, which is understandable, but you need to have pride in yourself and take calming breaths," I said, patting her head. She blushed but took my advice, breathing deeply to ease her nerves. Before she could respond, the gates opened, and I didn't hesitate to go through. Other examinees questioned my actions, thinking I would fail, but President Mike shouted, "What are you all waiting for? There's no countdown in a real battle. Follow that kid." Panic ensued as they raced off to score points. I sighed in boredom. "This is nothing but disappointment," I muttered, easily destroying most of the robots for 1 to 3 points without even using my full strength. I had accumulated about 69 points, which was enough for me. I decided to wait and see if anyone else needed help. With that, I jumped onto a building to survey the area. Meanwhile, in a control room, UA teachers and the principal observed the examinees. "It seems we have quite a good bunch this year, but let's see how they handle this," the principal said, pressing a large red button that would unleash chaos on the exam. Allmight, in his smaller form, watched Izuku specifically, shocked by his display of power and change in attitude. "I thought he didn't have a quirk. Did he somehow lie to me? If he's involved, I need to know," he pondered. Back to Izuku, he finished off a 3-pointer. "Well, that's about 167 points, so that's good. This is just too easy," he remarked. Suddenly, the ground shook as a giant robot began destroying everything in its path. "So that's the 0-pointer, huh? Overkill much?" Most examinees fled, but I shook my head, determined to ensure everyone was safe. I heard a cry for help and dashed toward the sound. My legs bulged with strength as I sprinted, feeling the heat within me. I reached the girl I had met earlier, removed the rubble from her leg, and lifted her bridal style, moving away from the robot. Once I set her down, I looked up at the robot, a small smile forming on my face. "I believe it's time," I said. The girl was curious but didn't get an answer as I charged toward the robot. I pushed my limits, feeling the heat coursing through me, a full smile on my face. As I got close, I crouched, creating a crater beneath me before leaping toward the robot's head. I aimed my fist point blank, causing an explosion of sparks upon impact. Everyone was shocked by my strength. I glanced down at the other examinees, but my focus remained on the girl I wanted to protect. As I descended rapidly, I was unexpectedly stopped by the gravity girl, who returned my weight to normal, causing me to land on my feet. I looked at her with curiosity. "Thank you for the save. Are you all right?" But the only thing he got was her unexpectedly laughing and making a strange comment. Izuku then looked at his hand, still feeling the heat from the exam. After that, the exam was over, and Izuku left with a serious look on his face, making some of the other kids nervous. "Hey, wait up!" A short girl called out. Izuku turned around to see her in front of him. "It's you, the one I saved," he said. "Thanks again for saving me. My name is Ochako Uraraka. Nice to meet you again." She laughed a bit awkwardly, having to look up at Izuku to see his face. Izuku chuckled in response. "Well then, my name is Izuku Midoriya. It's a pleasure to meet you again, Ochako Uraraka," he replied. She blushed and nodded, telling Izuku that she hoped he passed so they could see each other again. With that, she left, leaving Izuku by himself. What a strange but cute girl. Now, where is that mechanical genius? He wondered aloud. Just then he felt someone on his shoulders, making him sigh. "It's nice that you find my shoulders comfortable, May. How did you do on your exam?" he asked. I know for a fact I passed that exam with my amazing inventions." "Hey, Izuku, I have an idea for an amazing costume for you," May exclaimed. "Really? But you need to hear my idea for a weapon first," Izuku replied. "Hey, I thought we said not to call each other any nicknames until we start high school." She pouted, and Izuku just laughed as they walked out of the school gates. Izuku was now jogging on the beach, wearing only track breathes and enjoying the sun. It had been a few days since the exam, and he had been working out while spending time with May and helping her with her inventions. He also assisted his mom, who owned a small cafe, by being a waiter. He was becoming quite popular with the female customers, who enjoyed seeing him in uniform while savoring the food he served. Right now, he was doing one-handed push-ups, reaching 1,000 in just a few minutes. After finishing, he checked the time and decided to take a little walk. He grabbed his shirt and put on a pair of glasses, which he felt kept him humble. Later, Izuku looked at himself in the mirror, adjusting his glasses. "I don't know why, but for some reason I feel calmer than ever," he said to himself. He took off his shirt, revealing the mark of a lion on his back. "Whatever power I have, this mark is connected." That voice. I haven't heard it for so long. Who was he? Just then he heard a knock at his door. His mom, Inko, opened it. "Izuku, your letter came," she announced. Once Izuku saw the letter, he grabbed it from her hand, and she let him have his moment alone in his room, though she paced in front of the door. He looked at the letter, seeing the insignia of UA, and sighed. "Well, let's get this over with." As he opened the envelope, a hologram appeared, revealing a familiar figure. "Allmight, I am here as a hologram, young Midoriya. I am pleased to announce that you've gained 167 villain points, making you the representative of the first-year students. But wait, there's more. Not only have you obtained villain points, but also hero points by saving one of the examinees, giving you 60 hero points, totaling up your points to 227 points. Congrats, young Midoriya." Izuku, overwhelmed, accidentally crushed the device with his newfound strength. He took off his glasses, feeling a surge of power and anger. "I show no sympathy nor do I share any pride towards a pitiful fool who won't amount to anything," he muttered, calming down as he put his glasses back on. He opened the door to see his mother, and he smiled, bringing her into a hug that brought her to tears. Later, Izuku found himself on the beach, looking at the stars and moon shining in the night sky. I should have known you'd be here," a voice said. Izuku turned to see May approaching. "Well, this place is what led me to meeting you," he replied, laughing. "It's been about months since I saw you clean up this place. I thought you were taking away the parts one was using for my inventions," she teased. "And then you tried to attack me with one of your spare wrenches," he chuckled. "I said I was sorry, Muscles," May replied. Yeah, you did, he said, turning towards her and pulling her closer. I guess being prideful makes me more confident, he admitted. Maybe I like it, she said, and they leaned in, sharing a kiss that deepened as Izuku wrapped his arms around her. They pulled away, breathless. That was something else, Mei said, smiling. Yeah, I'm glad I'm sharing this with you, Izuku replied, looking at the moon and feeling warmth from the moment. Izuku was now dressed in his new school uniform, getting ready to head to UA High. His mother called out to him, and he turned just in time to receive a big hug from her. I'm so proud of you, Izuku. I hope you have a good day at school, she said. Of course, Mom, he replied, leaving the house. He paused for a moment, taking off his glasses and feeling his power increase, his muscles expanding. Well, now it seems things might get a bit interesting when I head to school, he thought, before jumping into the air and running across the rooftops at a fast pace. At UA High, a school designed for training future heroes, business professionals, and inventors, Izuku was trying to find his class. What the hell, he muttered, looking around in confusion. How hard is it for me to find my class? It's not prideful of me to be lost. But when Izuku finally found his class, he was a bit surprised at the size of the door itself. Once Izuku opened the door, he felt the need to remove his glasses at the sight. Before him, "Don't put your legs on the desk. Don't you think that's disrespectful towards your classmates?" one student exclaimed. No, as a matter of fact, I don't think so. Which middle school are you from anyway, you 2-bit extra, another replied. I'm from Somei Junior High School. The name's Tenya Ida, he introduced himself. Somei? Well, aren't you an elite? Seems I've got a reason to challenge you after all, Ida said, his tone brimming with confidence. What nerve! You want to be a hero? Ida continued, as the other students turned their attention towards the open door and saw Izuku, who simply wore a look of disinterest. Ida walked towards Izuku, only to stop when Izuku glared at him. Look, I already know your name, so you don't have to introduce yourself, Izuku said calmly. I see, but I would like to say that you must have found the actual nature of the practical skills exam, didn't you? I was blind and completely misread you. I hate to admit it, but you were the better man, Ida admitted. Izuku sighed, realizing this young man was serious. He let a bit of his power out and replied, Tenya Ida? Don't think I'll forget your disrespect from before. As of right now, we're just classmates, nothing more. Ida nodded, understanding the message. Deku, a voice murmured. Hey, I know that hair. Izuku turned around to see a girl looking up at him, her excitement evident. I'm glad I found you, she exclaimed. Izuku smiled at the young maiden before him. And it's nice to see you too, Uraraka. I'm glad you're in the same class. It would have been a bit boring if I didn't see a familiar face. He patted Ochako on her head, causing her to blush lightly, but she laughed, enjoying the moment. Well, I'm glad, but could you stop petting me? Ochako said playfully. Izuku smiled, noticing her blush. But it seems you like it. If that's what you want, then I'll stop, for now at least. Ochako lightly punched him and he laughed. Meanwhile, someone who disliked Izuku intensely recalled how Izuku had stood up to him while he was on the ground. Did you think you were going to be the best? Who decided that? Don't think you're meant to be the best because there will always be someone who can beat you, Bakugu, and that person will be me, who has pride in his very soul. Deku, I swear I'm gonna beat you down, Bakugu muttered to himself. Ochako then asked, but I do wonder about today's ceremony. Or is it guidance counselor stuff today? Oh, and what will the teacher be like? I'm so anxious. If you're gonna be hunting for buddies, do it elsewhere, a voice interrupted. Ochako turned around to see a man on the ground with a serious expression. This is the Department of Heroics, he said, taking a sip from his juice pouch. Most of the students wondered who he was as he emerged from his sleeping bag. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. Life is short, kids. You're lacking in common sense. I'm your homeroom teacher. The name's Shoyuda Aizawa, but you have to call me Sensei or Aizawa-sensei. It's a pleasure meeting you. The students were surprised to learn he was their homeroom teacher. Aizawa then took out what appeared to be a uniform. Wear these immediately and then head to the PE grounds. When the students heard this, they left for the changing room. Izuku looked at the upper part of the P uniform as if it were a curse. "Hey man, you doing okay?" a voice called out. Izuku turned to see a young man with spiky red hair and sharp teeth. "I would say that wearing the upper part of the uniform will likely restrict my movements for a bit if it tears," Izuku replied. "Wow, I mean considering how shredded you look, that could be a problem. Anyway, the name's Ejiro Kirishima. Just wanted to introduce myself to the one that's so manly," Kirishima said enthusiastically. "Really now?" Izuku responded, intrigued. "Yeah. From what I've heard, you took down a 0-pointer with ease. I gotta say, you must have one heck of a power to do that much damage," Kirishima continued. "You could say that," Izuku said, closing his locker door while putting on the P jacket, even though it felt a little tight. "Shota Aizawa, let's see if you're prideful enough," Izuku thought to himself. A surprise test awaited the class of 1A, with the understanding that whoever came last would face expulsion. Thus commenced the Quirk assessment test for class 1A. First came the 50-meter dash, where most of the class performed well, some in their element while others struggled. When it was Izuku's and Katsuki's turn, Katsuki tried to intimidate Izuku, but he was ignored. As they took off, all Katsuki saw was a blur, followed by the sound of the machine announcing, "Time, 2.34 seconds." This shocked Bakugu, who saw Izuku only sighing at his time. "No way! There's no way this Deku is more powerful than me," he thought, feeling frustrated. But he was mistaken. Izuku knew that using even a little bit of his power would be chaotic, so he held back. Still, he drew attention during the test. Then came the final event, the softball throw. After seeing Ochako achieve an impressive throw, it was Izuku's turn, and he wasn't worried in the slightest. "Man, I wonder how he's going to do for this event?" someone wondered. After seeing what he did before, it's no wonder he came first in the entrance exam. Midoriya seems to be well versed in almost all the events so far. I do wonder how well he'll handle this one. That Deku is a quirkless loser, he won't make it far. "What are you talking about? Of course he has a quirk. You should have seen how he took down the 0-pointer. Izuku, who was in the circle, almost went to take off his glasses but stopped and shook his head. "No point in doing that, I've already gained enough to come close to the top 3. Clenching the ball, he got into position, feeling his muscles stretching the fabric of his P uniform. He knew he had to make this quick, so with one swift motion, he threw the ball, watching it soar through the air until he heard the machine call out, "Distance, 799.5 meters. Izuku felt a bit satisfied and was about to leave when he was stopped. "Was that you giving it your all, Izuku Midoriya? If so, then what's the point of you being in this school?" Not only did Izuku hear this, but the rest of the class did as well, seeing their teacher glare at him, his eyes glowing and the cloth around his neck floating with his hair. "Is there a reason you're saying this to me, sensei?" Aizawa went to grab Izuku, but it was difficult because Izuku didn't move from his spot at all. All he could do was sigh at his teacher's pitiful effort. "Sensei, I will make something clear." Removing his glasses and sending them towards Ochako, who caught them on her head, he continued, "You're quite late to try and take me down." As he spoke, his voice deepened, and he began to grow taller, steam rising from his body as his jacket started to tear away. "Did you think your little threat could affect me? Who decided that? Did you think just because I haven't given it my all, you think I'm weak? Who decided that?" His jacket completely destroyed, his classmates saw his physique, including a tattoo of a lion on his back. The sight caused most of the girls to blush while some of the guys wondered how much he must lift to have that kind of body. Izuku stared directly at his teacher, who felt like a mere insect in front of a giant. Aizawa let go of him and deactivated his quirk, and Izuku simply smiled. "I see your pride is telling you when to quit when facing something leagues ahead of you." He turned towards his classmates, feeling the heat radiating off him, but he didn't care. When he was face to face with Ochako, who had to look up at him, blushing, Izuku chuckled while retrieving his glasses and patting her head. "Thank you for keeping my glasses safe, Uraraka. It fills my heart with pride, but unfortunately, I have to go and change." Putting on his glasses, he shrank a bit but still stood tall with a smile. I hope you guys don't get expelled, so don't give up. With that, he left, leaving a stunned class and a teacher whose heart raced in fright, along with another who looked on in surprise and fear. Bakugo, unable to move, felt a mix of emotions. Izuku had a quirk all along, and the way he looked at the class with such seriousness made Bakugo's hands clench, not in anger, but in fear. That guy. He had a quirk this entire time? How? There's no way, no, that he can't be stronger than me. Meanwhile, Izuku donned his school uniform and walked toward a room labeled Support Department. Let's see what Dreads is doing inside. Hopefully, we can start with the weapon soon. He entered, excitement bubbling inside him amidst the sounds of explosions and laughter from within the room. The next few days were normal, like any ordinary high school. Normal subjects like math, English, and classical Japanese were taught as if they were at a typical school, with pro heroes leading the classes. When the lunch bell rang, the whole of Class 1A made their way to the cafeteria. The reactions to the first half of their classes varied. Some, like Ashido, Kaminari, Siro, and Hagakure, looked wiped out, while others, including Yaoyorozu, Ida, Bakugo, and Izuku, weren't bothered by the lessons much. In one of the classrooms filled with support items for aspiring heroes, Izuku watched a young girl with pink dreadlocks, busy with a project she hadn't had the chance to make 10 months ago. With his glasses on, he couldn't help but smile, seeing someone important to him so confident and dedicated in her work. It made him wonder, if he hadn't gained these powers, would they have ever developed a relationship like this? Mei, you're staring intensely, Izuku. Why is that? Izuku, well, why can't I admire the person I care about making her wonderful inventions? Mei, flattery won't help you. Izuku stood up from his seat, walked towards Mei, and wrapped his arms around her midsection, causing her to stop her work. She turned her head slightly to look at him, and he smiled. Izuku, but at the very least, it's working. I meant every word I said. I care for you so much that I don't want to see you get hurt. Mei stared into Izuku's eyes, feeling warmth and peace as she blushed and smiled. She moved closer to him. Mei, and I care about you too, Izuku. She gently slipped out of his embrace to focus back on her work. Mei, I still have to finish up with this particular project, so no more distractions, okay? Izuku chuckled, turned her head, and gave her a quick kiss, which she accepted willingly. The kiss made her feel warm, but just as she was about to deepen it, Izuku pulled away with a satisfied smirk. Izuku, it's like you said, no more distractions. Besides, I have to head to class. I'll talk to you later. With that, he left, leaving Mei to watch him go, her mind racing with thoughts of how to get closer to him. Lunch was over, and Class 1A returned to see what was planned for their heroics class. Kirishima, I wonder what the teachers have planned for us today? Siro, hopefully something interesting. Aizawa-sensei did say teachers have the liberty to teach as they see fit. Yaoyorozu, I wonder who our teacher will be for this class. They didn't mention it specifically. While everyone speculated about their teacher, Izuku was focused on something he hadn't done in a while, writing in his notebook with a concentrated look on his face. Izuku, now this, I missed. I wonder if it's possible to produce even more heat at night. I have to see if this theory works. Yeah, I'll make sure Mei doesn't find out. Suddenly, the door burst open, and in walked the number 1 hero, Allmight, in all his glory. Izuku, great, not this Johnny Bravo ripoff. Allmight, I am here. Kirishima, wow, check it out, it's Allmight. Kaminari, whoa, this is gonna be awesome. Tsuyu, is that his Silver Age costume? Allmight walked dramatically to the front. Allmight, hello there, students. I'll be teaching you the true meaning of being a hero. Today's lesson will be battle training. Bakugo, battle? Allmight, however, what's a hero without the proper wardrobe? He pressed a button, revealing individual cases for the students with their seat numbers. Allmight, these cases contain each of your hero costumes. Make sure to suit up and meet in the training area. With that, he left the classroom, and the students grabbed their respective cases and headed out to get ready. Izuku was the last to leave, stretching a bit before checking his phone for messages from Mei. He chuckled at what he read, then looked up at the sky, removing his glasses. Izuku, it's unfortunate noon has passed, otherwise, I could show my classmates what real power feels like. With that thought, he confidently walked toward his destination. All the students of Class 1A were now in their hero suits, ready to face the challenge their teacher had prepared. Allmight, alright, you all look ready. Now we can begin this lesson. Before he could continue, footsteps were heard, and the class turned to see Izuku walking out of the tunnel without his glasses, wearing a costume that showcased his defined muscles. The long black sleeve top had golden lines running down the middle and a golden lion symbol on his right shoulder, paired with dark green combat-style breathes and black combat boots. Everyone looked at Izuku in awe. He radiated both power and confidence. Izuku, looks like I was the last to arrive. Sorry about that. All Might then explained that they would be participating in a 2-on-2 indoor battle trial, heroes versus villains. The heroes had 10 minutes to find the villains and either capture them or the bomb, while the villains had to defend the bomb and either defeat both heroes or run down the clock. As they were about to pick teams, Izuku stopped All Might. I will be by myself, I don't need someone to accidentally get in my way, Izuku announced. All Might looked at him for a moment, wanting to argue about being too overconfident, but he noticed a look directed at him filled with disdain and could only nod in response. This didn't go unnoticed by the rest of Class 1A, who looked at Izuku with uncertainty, but he remained unfazed. The matchups were set: Izuku Midoriya, Team A, versus Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida, Team D, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji, Team B, versus Masahiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure, Team I, Fumikichi Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui, Team H, versus Eijiro Kirishima, Minoru Mineta and Hantashiro, Team J, Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro, Team G, versus Momo Yaoyorozu and Achiko Uraraka, Team C, and Yuga Aoyama and Mina Ishido, Team E, versus Rikido Sato and Koji Koda, Team F. Izuku stood across from the building that Bakugo and Ida would be defending. The rest of the class and All Might went to the observation room to watch the match and wait for their turns. Although Izuku appeared relaxed, he was actually strategizing. He knew Bakugo would come straight for him, leaving Ida to guard the bomb. He would need to take out Bakugo first before searching for Ida. Begin! All Might called out. Izuku walked into the building, crouching slightly under the door. He skipped the first floor, knowing the bomb wouldn't be there. Halfway through the second floor, Bakugo appeared around a corner, unleashing a large explosion. Huh? Take that, Deku! Bakugo roared, believing he had landed a solid hit. When the smoke cleared, Izuku stood unharmed, a small frown on his face and an eyebrow raised. Was that supposed to hurt me? He asked. Bakugo, furious, launched another attack, but Izuku remained still, unfazed. As Bakugo charged for a third strike, Izuku grabbed his wrist and pointed him upwards, lifting him off the ground. Before Bakugo could retaliate, Izuku delivered an uppercut to his solar plexus, causing Bakugo to lurch forward. He stumbled, trying to regain his balance, but fell to his knees, gasping for breath. Izuku approached him. So, Katsuki, how does it feel to be weaker than someone? He asked. That helplessness, that weakness, that's what I felt every day before I got my power. How does it feel to be on the receiving end? Bakugo struggled to his feet, breathing. I don't care what power you have, Deku. I will always be stronger. Really now? Heroes always win, so what happens after I put you down today? That would make you the Deku, wouldn't it? At that moment, one of Bakugo's grenade gauntlets flashed. He grinned and laughed maniacally. Get ready, Det. These gauntlets store my sweat to create an explosion larger than ever before. With this, I'm going to take you down. Bakugo screamed, raising the grenade and aiming it at Izuku. Just then, All Might's voice echoed through the building. Young Bakugo, don't do it. It will hurt him. He won't die if he dodges, Bakugo retorted, pulling the pin from the grenade. A massive explosion erupted, shaking the building and filling the hallway with smoke. When it cleared, Izuku stood unharmed, only slightly singed. Bakugo was in shock. His ultimate attack had done nothing. Well, since you used a ranged attack, I will as well, Izuku said, raising his hand and pointing at Bakugo with 2 fingers. He conjured a small sun about 3 feet in diameter. Cruel Sunday. He launched it at Bakugo, who didn't even attempt to move. The blast hit him head-on, destroying the floor, walls, and ceiling around him. Izuku knew Bakugo wouldn't be getting back up. 2-minute warning, All Might announced, astonished. Izuku then sprinted to the 3rd floor, reaching it in 20 seconds. Upon arriving at the 4th floor, he found Ida standing in a large room with the bomb. "Ah, hero, you are finally here. I just have to hold you off for a minute, and this game goes to me," Ida monologued. Izuku simply stared before walking towards Ida. "I'm winning this." "But how are," Ida began, but was cut off as Izuku dashed past him and touched the bomb. "Heroes win," All Might yelled. Ida stood there frozen in shock at what had just happened. Izuku walked up to him. "Forgive me, but hurting you would have been meaningless. All I did was walk past you and win," he said with pride in his voice. Ida removed his helmet and turned to him, still in shock. Izuku grinned, his glasses reflecting a hint of sincerity, and patted Ida on the shoulder. This gesture made Ida smile back and extend his hand. Izuku took it, and they shook hands, demonstrating sportsmanship. The next day, Izuku was running on the beach, enjoying the sun on his face and the sound of the waves. He was trying to clear his mind after dealing with All Might, who had tried to question him. Izuku sighed, feeling stronger as he absorbed the sunlight. "It won't be long until Mei creates the weapon for me that I told her about. I wonder what kind of gift she likes? Or maybe giving her flowers. Then there's Ochako. Have I become a player?" he pondered, until he remembered his mom was making something from scratch and he wanted to see it. With a quick jog, he left the beach. Later, Izuku sat on a bus with his head resting against the window, eyes closed. He and his class were on their way to an off-campus site for rescue training. His thoughts drifted back to the events of the past few days. After defeating Bakugo and Ida, he returned to the observation room with Ida by his side. All Might congratulated him on his win and praised Ida for his efforts, but Izuku sensed the insincerity and moved away from the symbol of peace. He then asked the class who they believed the MVP was. Momo raised her hand, stating that Ida was the MVP for trying to protect the bomb, while Bakugo had left him to fight Izuku. Ida appreciated the praise, and Izuku smiled as he patted him on the shoulder. As the day continued, Izuku chuckled when All Might bolted out of the room as class ended, his time having run out. The following day, Aizawa announced it was time to elect a class president and vice president. Izuku received 5 votes, Momo got 3, and Ida received 2, making Izuku the president and Momo the vice president. During lunch, Izuku told Ida he had voted for him, surprising both Ida and Uraraka. When asked why, Izuku explained that leadership requires more than just strength, prompting Ida to raise his arms in a robotic motion, declaring that Izuku was more of a leader than he realized. This made Izuku chuckle. Suddenly, an alarm went off, causing panic in the cafeteria as everyone rushed toward the exit. Izuku and Ida realized the media was responsible for the alarms and exchanged determined looks. Izuku handed his glasses to Ida, powered up, and flooded the room with heat and pressure, causing everyone to freeze. Heavy footsteps echoed, and as they turned toward the sound, they felt a wave of power. Izuku, taller than most, narrowed his eyes and addressed the crowd. "Is this UA or just preschool? How dare you show no pride as students of this prestigious school? Where's your dignity to become better? Be proud, be ambitious, and head back to the cafeteria in an orderly fashion." Those who didn't know Izuku followed his orders, while those who did nodded in respect. Once back in the classroom, Izuku suggested a re-vote, curious if opinions had changed. To his surprise, he received more than half the class's votes. He sighed but accepted the outcome. "It seems your pride made the right choice. As your class president, I thank you," he said, folding his arms. Some classmates clapped as he put his glasses back on and took his seat, giving Ochako a smile that made her blush. Izuku was brought back to the bus when he heard someone say his name. He turned his head and saw it was Tsuyu. "Hello, Tsu. What can I do for you?" Izuku asked. "Ribbit. Call me Tsu. Anyway, Midoriya, I am a blunt person, so I'm just going to be honest. Your quirk, the way you use it, looks like a combination of strength and heat, similar to All Might and the number 2 hero. This caught the attention of everyone around them, with one person staring at Izuku intently. Izuku frowned, feeling a mix of pride and embarrassment, but then he managed a small smile. Well, if I can call you Tsu, then you can call me Izuku. He looked around the bus. That goes for the rest of you as well. Now, to answer your question, Tsu, I don't think my quirk is similar to All Might or the number 2 hero. It's actually a combination of my parents' quirks. Izuku felt a pang of guilt for lying. My father could breathe fire, and my mom could attract small items to herself. This led to something different for me because it feels like I'm stockpiling heat from the sun, which is why I call my quirk sunshine. I stockpile solar heat within me to dramatically increase all my physical abilities and create heat-based attacks, as you all have witnessed. So, while our power output may look similar to others, to me, it's completely different. Izuku's explanation seemed to put everyone at ease. Just then, Aizawa announced that they had arrived. They all exited the bus to find themselves in front of a large domed building. Upon entering, the class was amazed by the variety of climates inside. This is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short, Aizawa informed them. After his comment, the Hero 13 made her appearance and signaled to Aizawa about All Might's absence. Izuku noticed but shrugged it off. 13 then explained how any quirk can be dangerous, but even dangerous quirks can be used for good. Suddenly, a black mist appeared in the plaza at the bottom of the stairs. Izuku was the first to notice. Aizawa, I think we have a problem. Aizawa turned to see what Izuku was looking at, and they all watched as multiple villains emerged from the mist. Dozens of villains appeared, but 3 caught the most attention: the black mist villain, a muscular bird monster, and a bluish-gray-haired villain covered in hands. 13. Evacuate the students. Those are real villains, Aizawa ordered as he jumped down the stairs. Izuku watched him go, thinking, he is more of an assassin than an infantryman. This isn't going to end well. He stayed where he was and didn't follow his classmates. That's when he heard a voice he didn't recognize behind him. Turning around, he saw the black mist villain. Greetings, hero hopefuls. I am Kurogyri, and we are the League of Villains. Our mission is to kill All Might. You golden eggs are inconsequential. Bakugo and Kirishima rushed forward to attack the villain, but Kurogyri swiftly dodged their attacks and sent them through a portal. Before anyone could react, others were sent through portals as well. Izuku didn't move. He deemed Kurogyri as nothing but cannon fodder and not a threat, so he allowed himself to be sent through a portal, knowing he had a responsibility to protect his classmates. When he exited the portal, he found himself falling toward a body of water. He didn't panic. He knew he would enter the water without much damage. After hitting the water, he took a moment to get his bearings and noticed water-adapted villains swimming around him. One that resembled a shark rushed at him. Izuku remained calm. As the shark man got close, he drew out the power stored within him, increasing his height and muscle mass slightly. He struck the shark man in the snout with his enhanced strength, launching the villain backward. Then he noticed a green blur in the water. It was Tsu. After clearing the villains around Izuku, she launched her tongue at him. Seeing that Izuku had cancelled his power to avoid overheating her, she gripped him and tossed him into the air. He landed with a thud on a ship in the middle of the water, followed by another thud as Minor Mineta landed nearby, groaning from the impact. Tsu was the last to climb aboard. Izuku looked at her, grateful for her help. Thank you for the assistance. I am at a small disadvantage in the water, Izuku said sincerely. Don't mention it, but we need a plan to get out of here. They have us outnumbered, he added, glancing back at the group of water-based villains eyeing them. Just before Izuku could say anything else, Mineta started to panic, lamenting that he hadn't achieved his dream of being a chick magnet. Are you sure you're in the right class, Mineta? Tsu asked, looking at the short boy who was trembling at the thought of fighting for their lives against villains. Suddenly, Izuku grabbed Mineta by his cape and lifted him off the ground, bringing him face to face without his glasses. Mineta saw the flames dancing in Izuku's eyes. Are you here to be a hero? Or to be a disappointment? Because right now, Your pride is barely a flicker, Izuku said, dropping Mineta back to the ground. Mineta trembled as Izuku turned his attention to Tsuyu. You have all the abilities of a frog, right? Yeah, why do you ask? She replied. Just taking stock of everything we can use to fight these guys, Izuku said, adjusting his glasses as he contemplated their next move. Tsuyu nodded, both of them deep in thought. I could use a powerful attack, but it might cause more damage than necessary. I need a way to ensure the villains are taken care of. Mineta's sticky orbs could be useful, but right now he's too scared to help. Izuku's eyes lit up. I may have a plan, he told Tsuyu, who looked back at him. What is it? She asked. I'm going to power up and launch a strong punch that creates a whirlpool to group the villains together. Once they're stuck spinning, I'll use a powerful attack to incapacitate them, Izuku explained. Wouldn't they drown if they're unconscious in the water? I don't know if they can all breathe underwater, Tsuyu pointed out. Well, I could generate enough heat to evaporate the water, Izuku suggested. You would need to grab Mineta and jump as high as you can to avoid the heat. Tsuyu nodded in agreement. Izuku stepped back, calling upon the heat within him. Heat and pressure surged as he grew in height and strength. Okay, Tsuyu, the second I launch the attack, grab Mineta and jump as high as you can, he confirmed, looking down at her. She blushed slightly and nodded. Izuku took to the air, shooting up about 70 feet before floating there. He pulled his arm back, feeling his power release as he prepared to punch. Disappear, he said, launching his punch down toward the water. The force created a 30-foot opening, causing a whirlpool that caught all the villains. With that, Izuku conjured a sun half the size of his body. Cruel sun, he stated, launching the attack into the whirlpool. As it hit, he extended his hand. Flare. The water evaporated in a flash of steam. Izuku looked toward the boat he had launched from and saw Tsuyu and Mineta panicking, with Mineta screaming as they began to fall. He chuckled slightly and launched himself toward them, catching them 30 feet from the ground. They landed in the now empty lake, and Tsuyu thanked Izuku, who nodded as he set them down. Mineta stared at Izuku, feeling a strange admiration. As they looked toward where the villains had been, they saw slightly burned and unconscious figures, no longer a threat. Realizing they were in the clear, Izuku removed his glasses, causing him to grow taller and more muscular, which made Tsuyu blush. He let out a breath, feeling his power unrestricted, and turned to his classmates with authority. Let's make sure the rest of our classmates don't end up in danger. Right now, Mineta, Tsuyu, and Izuku decided to head toward the central plaza. Tsuyu insisted they should be stealthy, which delayed their arrival. When they reached the plaza, they were shocked to see most of the villains out cold, but a large monster had Aizawa pinned down, mocking him. The monster noticed Izuku and Tsuyu and rushed toward them, stretching his hand to grab Tsuyu's face. However, Izuku caught his arm. Now, I would advise you not to try to harm my classmates in my presence, Izuku informed him calmly, the hidden threat in his voice clear to all. Heh, an NPC thinks he can talk back to me. Nomu, the villain yelled. A black blur shot towards Izuku, who turned his head and was punched in the face but didn't move an inch, simply staring at the beast. Huh, interesting. It has power and speed close to Allmight. Of course it does. Nomu here was made to kill all might, the villain bragged. Izuku raised an eyebrow at that. Mineta, get Aizawa and get to safety at the top of the stairs, Izuku ordered. His tone held so much authority that the two teens jumped straight to Aizawa. At that moment, the door burst off its hinges. Allmight stood there, not smiling. He surveyed the central plaza and rushed into action, knocking out all the conscious villains. He scooped Aizawa, Mineta, and Tsu into his arms and took them up the stairs. Allmight, Izuku is still down there fighting a monster meant to kill you, Tsu informed the symbol of peace. He nodded and dashed down the stairs to Izuku's side. Young Midoriya, I know you can handle this, but I ask you to look for your classmates still around the USJ, Allmight requested. Izuku stared at him for a moment before nodding. Tisich, fine. It will be done, Faker. With that, Izuku disappeared in a burst of speed. He rushed to the conflagration zone, filled with fire, and found Ojiro holding his own. Izuku helped him take out the remaining villains and informed Ojiro where the others were. Next, he went to the mountain zone and found Momo, Jiro, and Kaminari struggling. Izuku stepped in, took out the conscious villain, and directed them to safety. He continued on to the landslide zone and found no one, then moved to the ruins zone, where he found no one as well. Finally, he checked the downpour zone and found Tokoyami and Koda. After taking out the remaining villains, he informed them where to go. With that, 3 minutes had passed. Izuku landed back in the central plaza and saw All Might struggling with the Nomu while Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kirishima watched. He appeared next to Todoroki, who glanced at him but said nothing. Izuku began walking toward the fight. "What's going on, All Might? Gotten weak in your old age?" Izuku asked, drawing everyone's attention, including the Nomu, due to the pressure he was exerting. "Young Midoriya, I thought I told," All Might started, but Izuku cut him off. "Already took care of it. Since you're struggling so much, how about I step in? We both know who's the most powerful between you and me. Face it, All Might, I am stronger than you," Izuku said with utmost confidence. The 3 classmates and the villain froze, thinking, this kid isn't showing All Might any respect. He might not be an NPC but a playable character. Before anyone could react, the Nomu lunged forward, arm raised for a punch. Izuku raised his fist and matched the Nomu in strength, noticing its reaction to the punch. They traded blows as everyone watched. Izuku landed a solid uppercut on the Nomu's sternum, but the Nomu didn't react. "Ha, Nomu has shock absorption. Everything you throw at it, it can tank the hit," the villain bragged, clearly proud of his creation. Izuku frowned and jumped back from the Nomu. If that's the case, then I'll use the gift my precious benefactor made for me," he said, raising his arm in the air and making a grabbing motion. After 7 seconds of anticipation, just as the villain began shouting, a piece of the ceiling exploded. An object shot towards Izuku, and he snatched it out of the air. Izuku held a large, one-sided golden battle axe, nearly half his height. It had a small handle wrapped in dark green, and the blade featured a guard with 4 evenly spaced spikes. Many looked at the weapon in shock. "This is Divine Axe Rida, my weapon," Izuku declared, staring down the creature known as Nomu, which took a step back from the sheer power the axe radiated in Izuku's hands. "Remember this well, for I am Izuku Midoriya, the lion sin of pride. This was a gift from my dear sweet benefactor, and I will use it to help me achieve my dream." Izuku began walking toward the Nomu, resting the axe on his shoulder. The Nomu advanced as well, and they stopped 5 feet apart, staring at each other. "Haha, you think you can take on Nomu? That's pretty funny," the villain laughed. Izuku turned to him. "I'm sorry, I haven't caught your name." "What would that be?" "The name's Tamura Shigaraki, kid." "Not that it will matter anyway," the now-named Shigaraki replied, chuckling again. Izuku laughed heartily before swiftly cutting the monster in half at the waist. The Nomu collapsed to the ground like a marionette with severed strings, shocking everyone in Central Plaza and those watching from the stairs. "One strike. Looks like I overestimated the creature," Izuku said, turning to Shigaraki. "Is that the best you have to face me? If so, you should run now." You cheater. You're nothing but a cheater," Shigaraki ranted, scratching his neck in frustration. Kurojirai interjected, "Tamura Shigaraki, you need to calm yourself. Remember, shock absorption wasn't its only quirk." This made everyone freeze, while Izuku raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "You're right, Kurojirai. Why should I panic? Look, the Nomu is already fixing itself," Shigaraki replied as a gurgling sound filled the air. They turned to see strands of muscle connecting the Nomu's upper half to its lower half, and soon it was fully healed. "Nomu doesn't just have shock absorption, it also has hyper-regeneration," Shigaraki declared. The creature roared, ready to attack. "Now, Nomu, kill the cheater." The Nomu lunged at Izuku, who swung Rida, severing its raised arm at the shoulder. He followed up with a powerful punch to the creature's face, turning its head, then kicked it with all his might. The blow disrupted the shock absorption, sending the Nomu skidding back a few meters. "I could use Rida, but cutting it up too much will make me look like a maniac." Time to go back to fists, Izuku thought as he glanced at All Might and his classmates. All Might, Izuku called, catching his attention. Hold on to this for a moment. He tossed the axe to All Might, who panicked briefly before catching it and then dropping it. Yeah, it's heavy. Just keep it in your sight, Izuku instructed before turning back to the regenerated Nomu and launching himself forward. The two powerhouses exchanged blows, appearing evenly matched. The Nomu absorbed Izuku's hits, and he took no damage from the creature's attacks either. Izuku got close, wrapping an arm around the creature's neck while striking its gut repeatedly. After several hits, the Nomu finally took damage. Izuku wound up for one final punch, using all his strength to hit the Nomu in the sternum, sending it across the plaza. The creature lay still for a moment but quickly stood back up, seemingly unfazed. Hee, you think you can take out Nomu? Your attacks have no effect on him. He can absorb everything you dish out, and what he can't handle he'll heal. It's going to kill you, and there's nothing you can do about it, Shigaraki taunted, laughing at the end. Izuku paused, then raised his right arm, pointing upward with his index finger. My attacks have no effect? Who decided that? That monster is going to kill me? Who decided that? As he spoke, a sun as large as his body formed from his finger, radiating intense heat and pressure that affected everyone in the plaza. What is this kid? The pressure and heat he is giving off are insane. All Might thought. Wait, don't tell me this kid is a secret boss. Shigaraki screamed internally. Now for Cruel Sunday. I will be the one to decide, Izuku declared, the sun above him growing hotter and brighter. Now, die, he said with cold determination as he launched the sun at the Nomu. The creature attempted to block it but was engulfed instead, skidding back before being propelled through the air by the force of the sun. It roared in pain as it was scorched, the sun continuing to rise and eventually breaking through the ceiling, leaving devastation in its wake. The plaza fell silent, disbelief washing over everyone as they witnessed the creature that had challenged All Might being annihilated by Izuku, who stood there looking unfazed. He turned to Shigaraki and Kurogyari. Now that your ace in the hole is gone, do you wish to continue? His calm demeanor caught All Might and his classmates off guard. Bakugo seethed in silence, recognizing he was outclassed. You, what are you? Shigaraki yelled in disbelief. You were supposed to be an NPC that could be killed in a second, but you're not. No, you're a secret boss. That's the only way this could happen. Izuku tilted his head slightly. Secret boss? Oh, you're using video game logic. I don't play much, but I know enough to get the reference. You see me as a boss that was hidden until you did something to find me? That sounds about right, Izuku said with a nod. Before anything else could be said, a gun was fired. The shot rang out, and Shigaraki was hit in the leg and then in the arm as he fell. Kurogyari was at his side in an instant, surrounding the villain, and they both warped away. Izuku and the others in the plaza looked up to see the teachers arriving, with Snipe pointing one of his guns, the barrel still smoking. Looks like backup finally got here, Izuku commented as he walked toward All Might. He picked up Rita and rested it on his shoulder. We should probably head up there, he said, glancing at his classmates. Kirishima nodded with a grin, while Bakugo crossed his arms in frustration but started walking toward the stairs. Todoroki glanced at Izuku, gave a curt nod, and followed after Bakugo. Izuku looked back at All Might, and when his classmates were far enough away, he asked, Are you so weak that your true self is going to be shown, All Might? He stared at the symbol of peace before walking toward the rest of his classmates, who fell silent as he approached. He noticed Ochako holding his glasses and gently placed her on his shoulder. Tamura fell through the portal and landed hard on the ground, groaning slightly. By the wounds you have and the lack of the Nomu, I assume it was beaten, a voice from a TV monitor said. Sensei, Tamura started, you're right, the Nomu was beaten. And it wasn't even by All Might, but by a secret boss. Tamura growled. This caught Sensei off guard. Really? Describe this person, he urged. This kid was taller and bigger than All Might and even stronger. He used a big axe and a large fire attack to defeat the Nomu. But what struck me most was how he disrespected All Might, calling him old and weak, claiming he was stronger. Tamura informed his sensei. Now intrigued, sensei thought, I expected All Might's successor, but if he disrespected him and used heat-based attacks, it wasn't my brother's quirk. All Might's successor wouldn't be disrespectful. What did the boy look like? He had bushy dark green and black hair, shining green eyes, and freckles. All Might called him Midoriya, so that might be his last name, Tamura stated. Good, Tamura. It's fine that you failed, you can learn from this experience. Heal up and we'll talk later. With that, the feed to the TV was cut. Sensei sat back in his chair, contemplating the new development. A hero hopeful who declared himself stronger than All Might and backed it up. This is a new piece on the board that could come under my control, willingly or unwillingly, he thought with a smug grin. This is the follow-up report on yesterday's incident at the UA Rescue Training Facility, where Hero Course students were attacked by villains, a news reporter announced. These criminals call themselves the League of Villains and have been plotting to kill All Might, who has been a teacher at UA since spring of this year. Citizens in the streets stopped to watch the large TV display. Later that night, Izuku lay on a beach towel, staring at the waves as he took a bite of a sweet pastry, his other hand gently resting in the hair of Mei Hatsum, who was enjoying his touch. He chuckled, feeling the warmth of the sun as he lay close to her, sharing a moment of comfort. The next day, Tsukachi reported to the UA staff. The police have investigated the group calling themselves the League of Villains. There doesn't appear to be anyone registered with the name Shigaraki in his 20s or 30s with a quirk that lets him disintegrate whatever he touches. The same goes for Kurogiri with the warp gate. They are likely not citizens and are using false names. When the ringleader Shigaraki's gun wounds heal, they'll definitely try again. It'll be a pain, the teacher with the cowboy hat stated. The ringleader, huh? All Might repeated. What is it, All Might? Nizu asked. It was a bold attack that normal people wouldn't carry out, even if they thought of it. To suddenly make wild statements like that? Although he didn't reveal his own quirk, he bragged about the Nomu's quirk. When things didn't go his way, he was visibly upset. The incident with the quirk was to force my hand, but, All Might explained. Even so, it was foolish to throw away the advantage of having unknown quirks when fighting against heroes, Nizu announced, with Tsukachi nodding in agreement. He made immature, wild statements with a straight face, All Might added. And the things he had with him showed he thought everything would simply go his way. The way I saw him during the attack, the impression I get of Shigaraki is someone who hasn't outgrown his childish sense of omnipotence. A man-child, All Might concluded. A child with power? A teacher with a scar on his cheek and gray hair asked. Could it be that he never received the quirk counseling every child gets in elementary school? The female teacher suggested. Well, what does that have to do with anything? The teacher in the cowboy hat asked All Might. There were 72 villains arrested the other day at USJ. They were all small-timers lurking in back alleys. But the problem is how they all agreed with that man-child and followed him. In the current environment saturated with heroes, people who have been oppressed may be drawn to that kind of simple-minded evil, Tsukachi spoke. There are plenty of people who don't know what to do with their quirks, the cowboy hat stated. This is alarming, though, the female sighed. Well, it's thanks to you heroes that we are able to devote ourselves to our investigation. We'll expand our search network and continue to assist in arresting the perpetrators, Tsukachi told them. A man-child. Nizu softly spoke, getting All Might's attention as he said, in some sense, he's like our students. There's someone who is cultivating his malice. Nizu finished. I don't want to think about what could happen, All Might thought. Once UA opened back up, the students in Class 1A sat in their classroom. Hey, did you watch the news last night? Hagakure asked Shoji and Ojiro. When they nodded, Hagakure told them, did you see how everyone in class was on screen for a second? I didn't stand out at all, that's true, Shoji agreed. Ojiro jumped a little, pointing out, it's hard to stand out looking like that, huh? I don't see the big deal about it. Kaminari leaned back to tell Kirishima about the news channels. I was surprised, Kirishima replied. Can you blame them? The hero course that keeps pumping out pro-heroes was attacked, Jiro explained. Who knows what would have happened if the teachers hadn't come when they did? Siro sighed. Stop that, Ciro. Just thinking about it is making me nervous. Mineta exclaimed, jumping in his chair. Shut up. Be quiet. Bakugo yelled back at him. Would you all stop talking for a second? The calmness and seriousness in Deku's voice caused the class to stay silent as he seemed to be in a foul mood. And why should I listen to you, Deku? Katsuki shot back. With one swift hand motion, he almost saw his life flash before his eyes as a fist was close to his face, sweat slightly pouring from his forehead. Test my patience and you will see. Everyone, morning homeroom is about to start. Stop talking and take your seats. Ida shouted at the front of the classroom. We're already in our seats. You're the only one who's not, Ciro commented. Ida sat down in his seat, shaking his fists in frustration. Shoot. Ida groaned. Don't worry about it, Ochako comforted him, focusing her attention towards Izuku. Ashido began leaning back in her chair until she leaned too much, and Azui had to catch her, finishing. That is going to teach homeroom today? The door opened, Aizawa standing there wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Morning, Aizawa muttered through the bandages. Aizawa-sensei, you're back too soon, the class exclaimed. You're too much of a pro. Kaminari looked horrified while Kirishima approved. So you're all right, Aizawa-sensei? Ida raised his hand. Can you really call that all right? Ochako asked behind him. Forcing yourself to teach isn't logical, sensei, Izuku said, a warm aura surrounding him that made a few students sigh in relief. For now. My well-being doesn't matter, Aizawa answered, making his way to the podium, adding, more importantly, the fight is not over yet. Fight. Bakugo smirked. Don't tell me, Izuku muttered. The villains again? Mineta stressed. The UA Sports Festival is drawing near, Aizawa told them. That's a super normal school event, the class shouted. That's a super normal school event, Kirishima repeated, before getting cut off by Kaminari, who put his hand over his mouth. Wait a minute, Kaminari called. Is it okay to have a sports festival so soon after the villains snuck inside? Jiro asked. What if they attack us again or something? Ojiro added. The administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled. That our school is safer than ever, Aizawa spoke. Plus, they're increasing security compared to past years. This event is a huge opportunity for all students at UA. It's not something we can cancel because of a failed villain attack. Why not? It's just the sports festival. Mineta looked worried at the thought of another potential villain attack. Mineta, Izuku turned to look at the boy behind him. Don't you know how important the sports festival is? Of course I do. Mineta responded, small beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. I just don't want to get hurt. The UA Sports Festival is one of the most watched events in the country. Aizawa spoke a bit louder to end their conversation. When it comes to competition between future heroes, the UA Sports Festival is #1 in Japan for viewership. That's right. Momo agreed from her seat behind Mineta. Top heroes from all over the country will be watching. This is an event where you can get scouted. Yeah, unless you're in danger. Mineta retorted, still looking uneasy about the event. She's got a point though, Kaminari piped up with a grin. After graduation, a lot of people join pro agencies as sidekicks. Yeah, but that's as far as some people ever go, Kyoka glanced at the blonde. They miss their chance to go independent and stay eternal sidekicks. Actually, that's probably where you're headed. You're kind of clueless sometimes. Oh. Kaminari practically pouted at the critique. It's true that getting scouted and joining a famous hero agency can get you more experience and even popularity, Aizawa admitted to the class of teens. That's why this festival matters. If you want to go pro one day, this event can open up doors for you. You get 1 chance a year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this festival. Which means you can't slack off in your lessons or training. Am I clear? Yes, sir, the class chorused. Several hours later, after their modern literature class with Cementos, the bell rang to signal the students' lunch break. Class 1A was still buzzing about the upcoming sports festival. Some were excited, others were nervous, and some seemed indifferent or were good at hiding their feelings. I am so pumped for this festival. Kirishima exclaimed, clearly part of the excited crowd. Heck yeah, if we put on a good show, we're practically on the road to being pros. Siro grinned at the redhead, sharing in the enthusiasm. That's why we're all here in the first place, right? Sato added, punching his right fist into his left palm. We get so few chances, so we have to make the most of this. Tokoyami nodded in agreement. I'm kind of jealous, Shoji. Your quirk is so unique you'll definitely stand out. Possibly, but what matters most is showing the pros how useful I can be, Shoji replied, brushing off Kaminari's envy. Results were much better for getting scouted than just being noticeable, at least in Shoji's view. No doubt you'll make a scene too, Kyoka teased Kaminari, reminding him of his past antics. Kaminari grumbled at the ribbing. I like how excited they are. It proves they'll give it their all since the festival is their first shot to get scouted, Izuku said, clenching his fist. Suddenly, a playful nudge landed on his shoulder, making him chuckle as he turned to see the mischievous eyes of Ochako Uraraka. Let's do our best, Izuku, she said with a smile, causing Izuku to pull her closer, which made her blush. Yes, let's do our best, he replied with a smirk, prompting Ochako to jump off his lap and resume her competitive spirit. Everyone, I'm gonna do my best, Ochako declared, throwing her fist into the air, radiating determination. Yeah, several students echoed, raising their fists alongside her. I said I'm gonna do my best. Ochako shouted again, her enthusiasm infectious. Are you okay? Tsuyu asked, tilting her head curiously. At lunch, Mei and Izuku found a quiet spot in the courtyard. They sat shoulder to shoulder in the shade of a tree, sharing bites of food and absorbed in each other's company. Many of their peers glanced at the adorable scene, with upperclassmen giggling at the couple. They're so adorable, a blue-haired girl commented to her friends from a distance. Aren't they? So cute, another girl replied. Yes, now calm down and eat your lunch, a red-headed girl added with a smile. I heard that the greenette was the one who fought the most during the USJ incident, a muscular blonde teen mentioned after swallowing his food. He must be pretty strong. I can't imagine having to fight villains in the first month of high school, a navy-haired teen said, shaking his head. I'd have panicked and frozen up completely. I already know it. He looked down, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. Hey now, the blue-haired girl chimed in. None of that. You're a third year now, so you've already passed that point, right? Seriously, how can one of the top 3 in the school be such a downer on himself? The redhead questioned, blinking in surprise. Izuku could hear the conversation despite the distance, but his focus remained on Mei, who leaned in to give him a gentle kiss. He wrapped his arms around her, resting his head atop hers. As the bell rang to signal the end of the day's last class, Class 1A began packing up their things. A few students noticed a muffled sound coming from the hallway outside. When Ochako opened the door to leave, she was met by a corridor full of other students. Why the heck are you all here? Ochako exclaimed, seeing the crowd staring at her and the rest of Class 1A. Do you all have some kind of business with our class? Ida asked the large group. Why are you blocking our doorway? Are you trying to hold us hostage? Mineta demanded. They're scouting out the competition, idiots, Bakugo sneered, stepping up to the door. We're the class that got attacked by real villains. They want to see us with their own eyes. A few students from Class 1A exchanged annoyed glances at Bakugo's usual abrasive attitude. Ochako frowned as Mineta pointed at Bakugo, astonished by his rudeness. Izuku shook his head at the ash blonde. Well, at least now you all know what a future pro looks like, Bakugo declared, addressing their classmates. Now move it, extras. Izuku sighed, realizing that Bakugo's attitude seemed permanent. You can't just go around calling people extras, just because you don't know who they are, Bakugo. Ida admonished, gesturing emphatically. A purple-haired male student pushed through the crowd. So this is Class 1A? I heard you survived a real villain attack, but you just sound arrogant. He locked eyes with Bakugo. Is everyone in the hero course delusional, or is it just you? Bakugo growled, a vein throbbing on his forehead, while several 1A students shook their heads, trying to defuse the situation. How sad to come here and find a bunch of egomaniacs, the newcomer continued, rubbing the back of his head. I wanted to be in the hero course, but like many others, I had to choose a different path. If any of us do well in the sports festival, the teachers might move us to the hero course, which means they'd have to transfer people out to make room. A few members of Class 1A stiffened at the reminder. Bakugo looked ready to explode. Scouting the competition? Maybe some of my peers are, but I'm here to let you know that if you don't bring your best, I'll take your spot. Consider this a declaration of war. He stated it plainly. I didn't put in all the extra work before and after the entrance exams to lose to anyone who's not serious about being a hero. Where'd this guy even come from? Was the thought running through most of Class 1A's minds. Hey, I'm from Class 1B. We heard you were attacked by some villains. I wanted to see what was up, but you're just a bunch of punks that think you're better than us. Another student yelled, pushing forward. He had long, messy gray hair and striking black eyes. Damn it, everyone is going to hate our class now, several Class 1A students thought. That's a rather brash claim to make, isn't it? Izuku stepped forward. When did any of us say we thought we were better than you? He felt a bit of heat rising, despite wearing glasses. You said we all thought we were better than your class, right? Huh. The silver-haired student looked at Izuku blankly. I'm curious how you came to that conclusion, considering none of us has said anything except for Bakugo being his usual self. The other student fumbled, eliciting whispers from the crowd. The purple-haired teen who declared war raised an eyebrow at Izuku. You jumped to conclusions and made up your own mind, Ochako chimed in, standing close to Izuku. The other student admitted, looking sheepish. I'm Tetsu from Class 1B. I wanted to see Class 1A, but I lost my cool after hearing the blonde guy. It's fine. Bakugo has a way of annoying everyone around him, Ochako said with a chuckle. Get lost. Bakugo shouted back as he stomped off through the crowd. Oh no, I made him upset, Ochako overacted, and Izuku placed a hand on her head to calm her. Huh, so maybe you aren't all full of yourselves after all, the purple-haired guy said with a sigh. But my declaration of war still stands. I will get into the hero course. One of those 40 seats is going to be mine by the festival's end. With that, he turned and walked away, and the crowd began to disperse. Well, that was different, Ishido remarked, and the tension in Class 1A began to fade as the students picked up their bags and left the room to head home. Izuku was silent during the walk, prompting Mei to stretch his face to get his attention. What's on your mind? She asked. I'm just looking forward to the competition. Just thinking about it has my blood boiling with excitement, Izuku replied, his eyes shining. The next 2 weeks were spent taking every opportunity to train for nearly every student in the hero course or those wanting to join. The school's gym and track facilities saw a surge in use, a familiar sight this time of year that amused the teachers. Except for Aizawa, who rolled his eyes while struggling to drink his coffee, the chuckles of his colleagues echoed around him. Beginning of the sports festival. Man, I really wanted to wear my costume, Mina complained as the whole class waited in their designated room, all dressed in the standard UA gym uniform for the festival. It's to keep things fair, Mina, Momo reminded her. The other classes don't have costumes, so gym uniforms level the playing field, so to speak, not counting each individual's advantage from their quirk. I wonder what the first round is going to be this year? Sato pondered aloud, trying to distract himself from his nerves. The anticipation of not knowing is the worst, he added. It doesn't matter what comes. We must face whatever the organizers have set up to challenge us, Tokoyami replied, arms crossed and eyes closed. He's right. We have to show that we can handle whatever comes our way like real heroes, Shoji agreed, sitting at one of the tables. Is everybody ready? We'll be entering the stadium soon, Ida announced, glancing at the clock. One by one, the class stood up, preparing to head out to the field. It was time to prove their worth as future heroes. Todoroki approached Izuku, who was quietly talking with Ochako, the girl playfully punching him. Midoriya, Todoroki called out. Izuku turned to look at his classmate, while everyone else watched the two strongest students in their class interact. "What's up, Todoroki?" Izuku asked. "Looking at things objectively, you and I are the strongest people in this room right now." "You are probably a bit stronger than me," Todoroki stated bluntly, not caring that the rest of the class could hear. Bakugo bristled at the comment, looking ready to explode. "What about it?" Izuku raised an eyebrow at Todoroki. "Regardless of your power," Todoroki continued, "I am going to beat you." The room fell silent, shocked by the bold statement from one of the quietest members of their class. "Didn't see this coming at all," Kaminari blinked, looking between Izuku and Todoroki. Hey, why are you trying to pick a fight now of all times? We're about to begin the festival." Kirishima tried to ease the tension. "I welcome the competition, Todoroki," Izuku grinned. "But you seem to be forgetting that you have far more competition than just me. If you let your focus rest solely on me, any one of them could pass you by in this festival." Every student perked up at Izuku's indirect pep talk, except for Bakugo, who muttered about winning the whole thing. Mineta, sitting closest to Bakugo, quickly slid away from him. "That response was so manly, Midoriya," Kirishima exclaimed, fist pumping excitedly. "It's time to go. Everyone, let's make our way to the field in an orderly fashion," Ida declared, marching to the door. "He's always so stiff." Mina laughed, and the remaining tension in the room vanished. Present Mike shouted from the booth, causing the crowd to cheer loudly. "Make some noise, sports fans. Get those cameras ready. This year we're bringing you some of the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show. Are you ready? Let me hear you make some noise as our students make their way to the big stage." "How did I get roped into this?" Aizawa grumbled from his seat next to Present Mike. "Time to welcome our students to the field," Mike announced as the first years began to emerge from the tunnel. Going in alphabetical order, we start with our two hero course classes. Give it up for Class 1A and Class 1B. The crowd erupted in cheers as Class 1A and Class 1B appeared. After the news of the attack on the USJ broke, people had wondered how such a large attack had been stopped by only 2 teachers and a single student. "Then, this place is completely packed," Ciro remarked, taking in the massive crowd and flashing cameras. "Next up, we have the students that keep UA High as one of the top 3 academic scoring high schools in Japan every year. There are general studies classes 1C, 1D, and 1E. Look out, hero course. Some of them are looking to take your place in one of those 40 seats." Present Mike hyped up the crowd, praising the general studies students for their hard work. Izuku noticed a few students standing a bit taller at the pros words. "Some of our hero course students could learn a thing or two about grades from them," Aizawa commented, causing a few students to flinch. "Now we have our talented students that produce the gear that gets things done. Support course classes 1F, 1G, and 1H. Make some noise." Mike shouted as the support course students, some wearing their own self-made gear, walked onto the field. Anyone that wants to go pro needs to make connections with support gear designers. "Quality gear can be the deciding factor in the field," Aizawa remarked, and several support course students grinned, one smirking toward Izuku. "And last, but certainly not least, the ones who learn the ins and outs of our economy and how to market the heroes and their causes. Business course classes 1I, 1J, and 1K. If you want to be an independent pro, you better make some friends here, hero course students." Present Mike declared loudly as the crowd's energy kept building. The business course students smiled and chuckled at the pro's statements. He wasn't wrong. Any pro hoping to go independent in the hero industry needed good marketing and representation. Many pros who became so-called eternal sidekicks did so because they failed to cultivate good working relationships with representation firms. That was actually a pretty fair introduction for all courses," a brunette girl from the general studies course mentioned, just loud enough for Izuku to catch. With all of the first years gathered in the middle of the field, a loud crack caught their attention. From up on the stage appeared Midnight, captivating the audience. "It's time for the opening speech," Midnight announced into the microphone with a grin. Please welcome this year's chief umpire for the first-year tournament, the R-rated hero, Midnight. Present Mike presented to the cheers of the crowd, especially from the male section. What about the principal? One attendee asked another. He's always at the third-year stage, every year, the guy next to him answered, not taking his eyes off Midnight. Kirishima mentioned with his cheeks slightly red, someone might want to talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing. Kaminari agreed, yeah, that costume should definitely come with a warning label. Teenage hormones were a powerful thing. Is that really appropriate apparel for a high school sports festival? Tokoyami questioned as the pro prepared to start the festival properly. A few of Class 1A noticed Mineta giving a very enthusiastic thumbs up, staring intently at Midnight. Silence, everyone! Midnight yelled, whipping the air to get everyone's attention. For the student pledge, we have Midoriya Izuku of Class 1A. Every eye turned to the greenette teenager. Izuku knew this was because he had scored the highest during the entrance exam. This was expected, and he received a nudge from Ochako as he gave her a smirk. As he walked towards the stage, he heard the murmuring of the crowd. Midnight gave him a gentle nod of support with a slight wink, prompting a chuckle to escape his lips. I'm pleased to be representing my fellow first-year students, Izuku said, nodding to the crowd of students on the field. I know that some of you aren't really into this event, while others of you are gunning for one of the 40 seats in the hero course. To both groups I say this, let's have some fun. But to those that are after one of our seats, a different message. Bring your best. We earned our seats in the entrance exam. If you wish to take them from us, then earn your seat here and now at the sports festival. We all welcome the competition. Let's all push each other higher towards our goal of being heroes. The crowd erupted into raucous applause, cheering and cries of motivation ringing out. Midnight squealed and hugged herself from the youthful passion, as she called it. Even all of the first-year students began to clap for Izuku's words. With a short bow, Izuku walked back down the stairs towards his class and his girlfriend. What a pledge! If that hasn't roused your spirit and fired you up, you must already be dead. Present Mike blasted through the speakers. With that awesome pledge and the spirit of competition blazing, let's reveal our first event for this year's sports festival. Get your foot off the desk. Aizawa's voice was barely heard as the crowd continued to roar and cheer. Time to find out the first game of the festival. Midnight cried out as a display lit up behind her and began spinning through options. This is when our students start experiencing the pressure for the first time. This year's first event is. The display stopped on the words, obstacle race. An obstacle race. Midnight cracked her W with a somewhat mischievous smile. Here we go. Present Mike yelled loudly while all the students looked on at their first event. The sports festival was ready to get heated. An obstacle race? The first-year students chorused as they looked at the display screen. The course will be one full lap around the stadium. The total length is 4 kilometers. As you all know, UA High's selling point is freedom. Midnight gave a playful look. There are only 2 rules. First, you have to run the entire course. No shortcuts or you'll be disqualified. The pro cracked her WHP towards the first years. The second rule, no attacking other students. Messing with the field to your advantage is fine, but direct attacks are not. Other than that, everything goes. You know the rules now, little listeners. Play fair and get back here first to be the winner. Break either of the 2 rules and you're out of the festival completely. Present Mike called out through the stadium speakers. Now then, take your places, everyone. Midnight yelled, making the crowd cheer as the first event was about to begin. The students began to move to the tunnel that marked the starting line. Izuku let out a sigh as he felt the heat of the sun surrounding his body, briefly glancing around at the rest of the students. The Hero Corps students all looked determined and prepared. The reminder that their seats were up for grabs seemed to have ignited a fire in the 40 students. Izuku noticed the same determination in a few other students from different courses. The one with the most intense expression was the purple-haired teen who had made a bold declaration against Class 1A, alongside Mei, who exchanged competitive smiles with a green-haired boy. As the countdown began, the first of 3 lights, a red light, went out. I wonder what the prize is for winning this race, Izuku mused briefly. It wouldn't be out of character for the sports festival to offer something for the winner of the first event. Or could the prize actually be a detriment? He wouldn't put it past UA to make success another trial. The second light, a yellow one, went out. No time to wonder about it now, I'll just do my best. Izuku grinned, feeling more powerful. Even with more people around, I will win, he declared confidently. The final light, a green one, flashed on. Start! Both Midnight and Mike yelled simultaneously. In an instant, every student rushed forward. Izuku took a single leap, clearing the entire crowd faster than most could notice. Okay, let's check out the action. Are you ready to give commentary, Eraser? Present Mike asked Aizawa. I'm still not sure why I had to be up here in the first place, Aizawa replied. We'll get started right away, Eraser. What should the crowd pay attention to in the first few minutes of the race? Mike continued, undeterred. The moves made right in this opening section will be important, Aizawa commented as he watched all of the first years rush into the narrow tunnel. Inside the tunnel, yelling and shouting erupted as the participants were squeezed together. Running through the tunnel at the same time proved impossible. It was far too narrow for all of them to pass through at once, and many realized it had been designed this way on purpose. This was clearly a test of ingenuity to see how they would navigate through and take the lead in the race. A sudden drop in temperature made most of the students shiver. The floor was covered in ice, and many of the first year's shoes froze over, sticking them in place. Alarmed cries and accusations of cheating rang out as Todoroki ran past the immobilized students. Sorry, but I have to win this race, Todoroki stated, leaving a trail of ice behind him, making it difficult for those who freed themselves to catch up. Like hell, icy hot. Bakugo roared, already airborne with his explosions propelling him. Nice try, Todoroki. Kirishima yelled, leaping forward to clear the spreading ice. That was naive, Todoroki, Momo commented, using a long pole to vault over the ice trap. Excuse me, sorry, coming through. The purple-haired teen apologized as he navigated over other students to avoid the ice. Many of those students were already trapped, and he wasn't going to be one of them. Your ice can't stop my sparkle, Aoyama declared, firing his laser and being carried through the air by the force of his unique energy. Hey, that was close. Mina shouted as her special shoes released acid onto the ice, dissolving it and creating clear patches on the track. I'm so glad I practiced this, Ochako said, floating above the track, her weightless form moving quickly through the air. However, her stomach was starting to feel uneasy, so she knew she had to land soon. Not a fan of the cold, Tsuyu remarked, leaping out of the tunnel effortlessly with her frog form quirk. You think you can get ahead of me, you half and half BC? Bakugo yelled, setting off stronger explosions to increase his speed. More people dodged that than I expected, Todoroki noted as he continued to run. He refocused on the track ahead, blinking in shock. Izuku had already left the tunnel entirely by the time Todoroki's ice trap was sprung. He had landed and started running while the first students were just reaching the end of the frosted tunnel. The Verdette's enhanced physicality had not only put him in the lead but was widening the gap by the second. When did he? Todoroki wondered, trying to recall when Izuku had passed him. I didn't even see him. Yeah, it seems like Midoriya is already in the lead. He launched himself ahead before Todoroki's ice trap even struck the tunnel. Talk about leg strength. Mike announced, as all eyes moved to the monitor focusing on Izuku leading the pack by a significant margin. That's what happens when you don't hesitate, Aizawa spoke up. Midoriya determined the best course of action to escape the tunnel was not to run through it, but to use his enhanced strength to make a single leap and clear it entirely. He approved of the quick and rational actions of his student. You think you're so cool, but I've outsmarted you. Mineta called out, bouncing over the ice while using his quirk to make stepping stones. How pathetic, Todoroki. The purple-headed boy taunted as he struck a silly pose. Take this. My special attack. Grape. He was cut off as a large metallic fist slammed into him from the side, sending him bouncing along the ground. Target acquired. The mechanical voices of dozens of robots rang out as a horde of one-pointers from the entrance exam tore through the walls that had been set up to outline the track. With a rumble and huge plumes of dirt and dust, 8 zero-pointers rose from their hiding places among the forests surrounding the track. Ooh, enemies have shown up out of nowhere. We're in for a treat here. It's a test of strength and cunning, the Robo Inferno. Present Mike announced as the robots locked onto the students. Are those the zero-pointers from the exam? Kaminari skidded to a halt, along with the majority of the first years. The hero course had to fight those? Someone questioned from the crowd of students. This is what they meant by obstacles? Another student demanded as they stared up at the towering robots. There's too many. We can't get through. A different student cried out at what they perceived to be an impassable barrier. So, this is what the other students faced in their entrance exams? Todoroki commented as he sized up the massive machines. Where did the school even get the funding for these things? Momo wondered as she, Ochako, and Kyoka looked at all the robots. Before anyone could make a move, Izuku, who had barely slowed down, dealt the first blow to the Robo Inferno. A massive bang went off as one of the 8 zero-pointers rocked backwards from the impact of Izuku launching himself at it. He had shoulder-tackled the mechanical behemoth and sent it reeling. Begone! Izuku stated firmly as both of his hands rested against the robot's metal torso. The metal below him turned red as heat spread through it, forming rings of increasing temperature as Izuku funneled the heat within him into the metal. The center went from dull red to bright white as it completely liquefied. The fallen zero-pointer was bisected before everyone watching the sports festival. Whoa yeah! Mike screamed into the microphone. Barely even slowing down, Midoriya destroys a zero-pointer near instantly. What a display of power and control. Present. Mike exclaimed loudly. With the obstacle cleared, Midoriya is back on the move, increasing his lead. Many of the watching pro heroes shifted their eyes to Izuku with interest. I won't let you beat me. Todoroki promised as frost started to accumulate in his right hand and spread across the ground. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they'd have prepared something a little more difficult. Especially since dear old dad is watching. He stated with a mocking tone at the end. The ground froze in a large area surrounding Todoroki, and he swiped his right arm upwards, sending a blast of ice and frost at 3 of the remaining zero-pointers just as the massive machines began their attack. The robots stood no chance as the ice encased their metal bodies. With an exhale of frosted breath, he ran between the frozen behemoth's legs as he chased after Izuku. Look, he stopped them, a student called out. We can get through between the legs, another claimed loudly. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Todoroki warned the group. I froze them while they were off balance. He informed in a monotone as the 3 zero-pointers started to tilt over. The majority of the students ran backwards to clear the area as the frozen giants slammed into the ground. On purpose. His final words to the rest of the students went unheard in the racket as he rushed ahead. Todoroki from Class 1A attacks and defeats multiple zero-pointers in one hit. Then he traps his competitors behind a wall of frozen metal with all the other robots. He's definitely one to watch. It almost seems unfair. Mike roared as he stood up from his seat at another display of incredible power from the first-year students. His attack was both offensive and defensive. He made a rational and strategic move to ensure his own progress, Aizawa commented as he watched Todoroki chase after Izuku. That's to be expected of a student who got in through recommendation. He's never even fought those robots before. The Robo Inferno was extinguished by his chart-topping moves. Mike was almost hopping up and down as he commentated. Like hell I'm letting Icy Hot and Deku surpass me. Bakugo yelled as he launched himself over the remaining zero-pointers with his explosions. Bakugo, also from Class 1A, clearly does not intend to throw in the towel. Instead of trying to go around, he goes overhead. Clever! Mike called out as more and more students started making their way through. As expected, 1A and 1B are the fastest to make it through the first obstacle, Snipe noted from the teacher's booth. The other students aren't bad either. Especially the ones from general studies who have a chance to get into the hero course, Toshinori mentioned as he watched the race. But there's a clear difference in training. The hero courses aren't given any time to just stand around, Izawa stated as the students of Class 1A and Class 1B tore apart any robot that stood in their way. Momo created a fully functional cannon and blasted a zero-pointer's head into scrap with a well-placed shot. Mina dissolved the heads of any robots that approached her. Kaminari simply had to touch them and release his quirk for a moment to disable the robots. Ida kicked most of them aside without much trouble. Kyuka destroyed 2 robots at once with her jacks and the immense vibrations they sent into the machines. Siro and Tokoyami used their quirks to follow Bakugo's lead, leaping over the zero-pointers. During the entrance exam, they were seen as enemies to be avoided. If you see them as opponents to be defeated, then they're just large, slow hunks of metal. They're easy to deal with if you make smart shots, Snipe commented as he watched even the zero-pointers fall to the students. For those of you who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the second one. Present Mike announced, holding his right hand to his head with a wide grin. The next challenge appeared to be a bottomless pit. Tall stone platforms were spaced out across the large canyon, but they were so far apart that only a select few quirks would have any hope of jumping between them. In between the platforms were long, thick ropes that moved slightly in the breeze, providing unstable footing. If they take a spill, they're out. If they want to pass this test, they'll have to get creative. It's the fall, Mike declared as Izuku surveyed the massive chasm and the rocky platforms. I can handle this, Izuku stated, fueled with confidence. Crouching down, he used his enhanced strength to launch himself forward. Flames erupted from his hands and feet, surprising the audience. With careful control, Izuku flew over the last half of the chasm and landed on the other side. Incredible! Midoriya gets past the second obstacle as if it wasn't even there. This will surely increase his lead. Present Mike exclaimed as the crowd cheered, while the rest of the students began to approach the second obstacle. You won't escape, Todoroki declared angrily, using his ice to propel himself along a rope line, quickly crossing almost a dozen platforms. Dimenu, Deku. Don't think for a second that I'm copying you. Bakugo shouted after Izuku, powerful explosions lifting him into the air as he flew over the entire obstacle. Wow, that's almost unfair. Chuko commented, watching Bakugo soar. Finally, this is my chance to show what I can do. Mei exclaimed, snickering as she approached the edge, decked out in support gear. Everyone, observe what my brilliant gadgets can do. These are my wire arrows and hover saws. Hatsum, please don't overdo it, the Choco cautioned, but Mei assured her not to worry. Hey, why'd you get to bring all of that stuff? Mina asked, pointing at Mei. Hero Corps students get all kinds of special training. To keep things fair and give us a fighting chance, we can bring whatever gear we want as long as we make it ourselves, the Pinkette grinned. Now watch and be amazed. With that, the support corps student launched a cable across the chasm to a platform. Her boots activated, lifting her off the ground with powerful fans. I hope all the support companies are watching, she exclaimed as she swung through the chasm. When she reeled herself upward with her wire, her boots propelled her into the air, crossing half the obstacle in one shot. We may be friends, but I won't lose, Ochako declared as she ran to one of the ropes and started to cross. That gear is just unfair. Mina huffed as she picked a rope and began crossing too. On the other side of the fall, Todoroki glanced back to see Bakugo gaining ground. The ash blonde was cursing as he forced his quirk to keep going, feeling the strain in his arms. Is he still getting faster? Maybe he's a slow starter? Todoroki pondered, increasing his speed. Dimenit. Bakugo growled, noticing Todoroki picking up speed. You beasters keep looking down on me. The leading 3 are maintaining their positions, while the rest of the pack remains mostly clumped together. The number of people that will make it through the first round hasn't been revealed, so no one can relax yet. Keep going, students. Mike encouraged the first years. Izuku reached the final obstacle with his lead intact. He continued running as he read the large sign, Danger Mines. With a running start, Izuku smirked, feeling the sun's heat fueling his confidence. With a powerful leap, he cleared the entire length of the minefield without even using his flames. Landing kicked up a cloud of dust, but in less than a second, Izuku was bolting down the track toward the finish line. I couldn't even announce the final obstacle before Midoriya cleared it. Mike roared in excitement. He just cleared the minefield in a single running leap. What a student! Midoriya knows his limits fairly well. He was able to determine that he could make such a leap in seconds, Aizawa commented. That's the kind of knowledge that lets a pro operate in the field to their maximum ability. DMN. Todoroki gritted his teeth as he slowed and navigated through the minefield. This won't hold me back, Bakugo declared with a fierce grin as he propelled himself into the air again. His arms were sore, but the brief rest he'd given his quirk had helped. Don't you dare think you can stay ahead of me, Deku. I can't waste time here, Todoroki decided, forming a pillar of ice under his feet and launching himself into the air. He tucked and rolled upon landing, quickly getting back on his feet before the two mines he triggered could detonate. A large platform of ice formed beneath him as he blasted ahead, leaving a trail of nearly meter-tall ice behind. He felt a shiver as he pushed his quirk harder to catch up with Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku continued to run, glancing back to see both Bakugo and Todoroki closing the gap as they utilized their quirks to the fullest. With a determined smirk, Izuku shifted from running to a full sprint. The bulked-up teen became a blur, kicking up a large cloud of dust as he dashed into the stadium. He caught a glimpse of the finish line but passed it, skidding to a stop dozens of meters away just before the announcement of his win echoed through the speakers. Midoriya makes one last impressive dash as he wins the obstacle race. Mike yelled as Todoroki and Bakugo crossed the finish line. To Bakugo's frustration, the board showed Todoroki beating him by a fraction of a second. The ash-blonde growled, his hands shaking and his arms aching. Rainbow-colored confetti fell as the crowd cheered wildly. Izuku raised his right fist in victory, a proud grin spreading across his face as he looked out over the cheering crowd. He recognized many pro heroes among them, hearing their excitement and admiration for his skill and power. He exhaled, lowering his fist and adjusting his glasses as he returned to his normal height and physique. Izuku! My baby! Inko exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her face. She was so proud of her son for coming in first place, though the amount of tears she shed was a bit concerning.